Hello, this is new video for both my YouTube channel and for my subscription only blog. So on the blog it also will be posted with open access. However, all follow-up videos which I plan will be available only for subscribers of my blog. So it's sort of like a sort of preview, just advertising for my subscriber only English language blog. So in my previous videos in subscriber only blog, I told the story of the Soviet pre-war and World War II period system of small arms development and design. Now I'm going to tell how Soviets developed and adopted small arms after World War II, basically since probably late 50s and until the fall of the Soviet Union. This will be a very broad picture, so I will provide more details later if there's enough interest. So basically, the Soviet structure from top to bottom was at the very top of the Soviet government, were ministries which controlled dedicated parts of Soviet economy or Soviet structure. There was Ministry of Defense, which was responsible for all armed forces and Navy, Air Forces, Ground Army, or everything. So strategic nuclear forces. So it's all fell under the Ministry of Defense. Also, there was a Ministry of Defense Production, Министерство оборонной промышленности, which was responsible for production of defense articles, so mostly armaments and so on, but not everything defense related was produced by Ministry of Defense Production. For example, there was a Ministry of Transport Machine Building, Министерство транспортного машиностроения, which openly produced cars, vehicles, all transportation equipment, but it also produced tanks, for example, armored personal vehicles, and so on. So there was very interesting ministries like Ministry of Middle Machine Building, of Medium Machine Building, Министерство среднего машиностроения. This puzzling name was umbrella for Soviet nuclear capabilities. So it's designing, producing, storing nuclear weapons, also designing, producing, and running nuclear power stations and research reactors, production of various radioactive materials, and so on and so on. So there was a lot of ministries, their structure changed over time, but it was basically all interlocking structures which worked under as a integral parts of the Soviet government. So inside Ministry of Defense there was GAU, Главное артиллерийское управление, General Artillery Department, which in 1960 was renamed as GRAU. Генеральное ракетно-артиллерийское управление, главное ракетно-артиллерийское управление, General Missile and Artillery Department. Besides artillery, and mostly controlled all sorts of ground armaments for ground forces, including small arms, and it traces its roots to like 17th or 18th century. So it's like artillery, small arms development, and so on. So this was body responsible for ordering small arms from the Soviet industry and accepting them and adopting and maintaining and so on and so on. So inside the GRAU there was a think tank, a brain center called NI-3, Third Scientific and Research Institute of Ministry of Defense, which was and still is a military establishment staffed by military personnel, ordnance personnel, and it's responsible for developing requirements and analyzing needs of everything for ground forces: equipment, weapons, small arms, larger artillery pieces, mortars, personal protection equipment, nuclear, biological, chemical protection, and so on, so on, so on. So basically, all requirements for new small arms and for new ammunition mostly came out of NII 3, and through the top of GRAU to industry. The GRAU also controls several so-called research and development proving grounds. It's proving grounds where weapons are tested, analyzed, studied, and not only results are recorded, but also they are analyzed and suggestions are issued to either to the military users or to the industry who have to improve the products, on what to take note of, and so on. So before 1960, the key proving ground was one in Shurovo, Nipspilov, where, for example, Simonov and Kalashnikov worked for a time. After 1960, this responsibility for testing small arms was passed for proving grounds at Zhevka, near Leningrad, today St. Petersburg, which was a former Navy naval proving ground for naval artillery and stuff. So the key provider of small arms and ammunition to the Soviet military was Ministry of Defense Production, Minobоронпром. It also had some structures, not simple structures. So when military, the GRAU issued a requirement for a specific new weapon system or small arm, it was passed to the specific research and development organization within the Ministry of Defense Production, known as NII 61, Research and Scientific and Research Institute number 61, which is today known as CNITASHMASH, Central Research and Scientific Research Institute of Precision Machine Building. So it's typical Soviet euphemism for precision machine building, so small arms, ammunition, and so on. So this organization was formed in 1944. Originally, it was two separate organizations. NII 44, which was responsible for small arms ammunition, and which was, for example, developed the 7.62 model of 1943 intermediate cartridge, and NII 61, which was originally responsible for aircraft armament. In 1948, those two were merged inside NII 61, and they became responsible for development of small arms and later larger ordnance like mortars, some sort of automatic weapons, and so on and so on. So important point, this is a civilian organization, so it belongs to civilian ministry of belonged to the civilian Ministry of Defense Production. It was staffed primarily by civilian personnel, not military ordnance. And its goal, its main purpose was to develop the means to fulfill military requirements, to find best solutions, best new technical ways to develop new ammunition for military requirements. Once they found an appropriate way to solve the problem presented by military, the task was passed down to the design bureaus. There was several key design bureaus responsible for small arms, the design centers. It was in Ijevsk, in Tula, and in Kovrov. So, in most parts, those design bureaus were aligned with small arms factories, except with the case of Tula. So in Ijevsk, design bureau was part of Ijevsk Ijevsk weapons factory, now present Izhmash. President Kalashnikov concerned, before it was Izhmash. For in Kovrov, the design bureau was at times part of a small arms factory here, and at times it was a separate organization in the same city. In Tula, Tula Arms Factory, those never had its own serious design bureau. There was a separate design bureau in Tula, CKB 14, Central Design Bureau number 14, which was over time split, renamed, and at the present, during the Soviet times, there was primary, since about 1960, small arms were developed at СКИП СО, Центральное конструкторское бюро спортивно-охотничьего оружия, Central Design Bureau for Sporting and Hunting Arms, which was originally created to design sporting and hunting arms for civilian market, but later it was assigned responsibility also to design military small arms and some larger weapons like machine guns, guided missiles, and aircraft cannons, and so on and so on. So it was a complex, somewhat changing structure. And the design bureaus actually developed small arms. And in most cases, the resulting designs meet the competition, the competitive trials held by the Zenit Ashmash on E61. First, it was the first early testing was at the factory level, at design factory, design bureau level. When we were tested by Zenit Ashmash. And if the testing was successful, the final testing, the best contenders were passed over to the military for military acceptance testing and then field testing. So it was like staged process, but it was not always so. Sometimes, especially for weapons intended for special forces, there was no competition. For example, some suppressed weapons like Val, Vintorez were developed inside the Zenit Ashmash without passing with torch to more generic design bureaus, and they were adopted without a competition, only after the factory and then military acceptance testing. But in most cases, it was very fierce competition trials, like 1947, in 1957, in late 1960s. It was for standard military small arms like assault rifles, sniper rifles, machine guns, pistols. It was always a competition between design bureaus. However, when military picked the winner, okay, we are adopting this design, the production facility was decided at the ministry level. So, for example, Izhevsk Design Bureau, Mikhail Kalashnikov and his team designed AKM and RPK. So it was in Izhevsk with Izhevsk factory. However, Ministry of Defense decided that the AKM should be produced by Izhevsk and Tula factories, and RPK should be produced by Vyatsky Polyany, the Molot factory in Vyatsky Polyany. So there was no competition between factories for contracts. So it was decided on a planned basis. So competition was only between designs, but not between producers. And military issued overall requirements. We need that much assault rifle for period of, say, 5 years. And then Ministry of Defense Production issued specific production orders for factories, for some contractors, and so on and so on. So it was like a pyramid, so with the research structures at the top and production at the bottom. So that in most cases, the resulting weapons started with scientific research of what is needed on the military part and how it is best be done on the industry part, and only when the design bureaus were able to develop actual small arms using using military requirements and specific recommendations from the industry research centers. For example, when the Soviet design bureaus were participating in Abakan trials, the Zenit-Tachmash issued recommendations on best operating systems like a balanced system or a system with accumulated recoil. And when we gave basic designs or concepts to the design bureaus to use them in their specific designs. So it was again because there was like no intellectual property in the capitalistic way. So it's probably a topic for separate brief explaining video how intellectual property operated in the Soviet Union. But this was, I think, a good, well thought out system. And one part of the system which is almost always forgotten is where it got its engineers and designers and its workers. Because we probably heard that Kalashnikov was self-trained man. Most of the small arm designers of the first and even second generation had no specific education. However, even before the World War II, Soviet government recognized the need for the trained engineers, technicians, designers who had specific skills in design of military equipment, aircraft, artillery, small arms, and so on. So several universities had departments specifically oriented toward defense production, including small arms. Most of those universities exist today, and to this day they have departments where you can get the university degree in design of thermal impulse machines, тепловые импульсные машины, which is actually automatic small arms, or in design of small arms ammunition, artillery ammunition. This is very important because this guarantees flow of trained engineers, not only designers, but technologicians, production engineers, technicians, and so on and so on. So again, if you're interested, I can sum up this situation with military universities, military-oriented civilian universities, which trained and still train engineers for Soviet and then for Russian defense capabilities. This system suffered a lot after the fall of the Soviet Union, but it's still more or less the same. It's only several factors were just accumulated in the larger concerns, like Kalashnikov concern, but it's still more or less the same. The NII-3 in Ministry of Defense still exists. Zenit-Tachmash still exists, although it's a joint stock company. It's a private company, but with controlling share held by the government, blocking share. But the basic structure is the same. And I think it was really well thought out, and it was not perfect. It had its own problems, its own internal struggles. Of course, with a lot of planned capabilities, it's tended to prefer more complex designs, which were more expensive and more prestigious to design and to produce. But it was not always so. But still, they had to pass scientifically designed requirements, because it was not just we want super plasma rifle in 40-watt range and give us a big gun. So in most cases it was more or less scientifically evolved requirement. And I think this is sums up very briefly the structure. And if there is interest, please comment, and I will try to create more detailed videos about specific history of specific design bureaus, which is very interesting, or just history of armament factories with some details, examples of their most famous, most interesting weapons. And I hope you like it, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, subscribe to my blog at Boosty. Hope to see you again soon. Bye.